And we have all these freaking regulating systems that, you know what? If you can actually eat 200 grams of protein within a meal, it'll take the whole damn day.
And that makes me curious because I asked Lane this question too when he came on, because all over social media, you sometimes, because we don't do one meal a day all the time, but when we do, people are like, but you can't absorb all that protein. Like I'll eat 240, 250 grams in a sitting. Like I'll eat all my calories. And people will be like, you can't absorb all that. I thought you can only absorb 30 to 40 grams of protein in a sitting. That's still a thing where people are like, you can only absorb 30 to 40 grams. So my question here is, number one, where does that come from? Because we know that like apparently even protein feedings is better for muscle protein synthesis. But what does happen if an individual does choose to have all of their protein in a sitting? Can they not absorb it? Is there something actually super negative about that?
That's a really good question. Where it comes from is studies, short-term studies on muscle protein synthesis response. Like literally, like within a few hours of consuming the meal. That's where this stuff comes from. And so what we see is there seems to be a ceiling of protein dosing where muscle protein synthesis will reach max and then it'll start dropping down, regardless of the protein dose. And what we did get that right. We did get that right, that muscle protein synthesis has to be regulated somehow. Otherwise, people would just turn into the Hulk with huge, 100, 200, 300 gram protein doses, right? So we did get that right. What we didn't get right for a long time was thinking that limit was like 25 grams. So we tried different protocols over the last few years and saw that, well, in older folks, that limit is higher. And with higher training volumes of the prior resistance exercise bout, that limit goes higher. And so we're looking at potentially, in the 40 gram, 50 gram, possibly 60 gram, depending on the population and the protocol.
Let's take a break and talk about one of our sponsors, Piedmontese Beef. Now, the great thing about Piedmontese is they have so many different cuts of steak. We call it the diet steak, where they have low fat cuts of amazing tender beef and high fat cuts of amazing tender beef. Seriously, like one of their flat irons has 80 grams of protein and 4 grams of fat. You're missing out if you don't get it. Andrew, can you tell the people how to get some Piedmontese, please?
Absolutely. You guys got to head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. Check the links down in the description below. Head over there right now.
Now, but moving on to the next part of your question, that's a little trickier because, first of all, there's not this perfect correlation between the amount of muscle protein synthesis you can stimulate per meal or even per day with X number of meals versus how much muscle you'll gain or retain over a period of months. There's kind of a disconnect there. There's not only a disconnect, but there's it's a vast gray area that we really need to investigate, but only a few people really care about that. The thing is, when we ingest a meal, especially a solid mixed meal, there's multiple regulating systems that really tightly regulate the flow of that meal through the GI tract. So, we've got the limit of how fast food can go down the esophagus. We've got the freaking esophageal sphincter regulating entry into the stomach. We got peristalsis. We've got everything. We've got the pyloric sphincter regulating entry into the duodenum. Then somewhere in the GI tract, we have the freaking jejunal brake. So we have the duodenal brake, the jejunal brake, the ileal brake towards the distal end of the GI tract. And we have all these freaking regulating systems that, you know what? If you can actually eat 200 grams of protein within a meal, it'll take the whole damn day to digest and absorb. And therefore, you're not going to lose much of it to waste heat, to excretion. It's not going to disappear. You are going to absorb the vast majority of it, and you are going to use the vast majority of it. Now, the mystery, the great mystery is, what is the ideal distribution and dosing of these peaks of MPS through the day to expedite muscle growth? And do these individual peaks in MPS even matter that much for muscle growth over time? And we're hypothesizing it does, but we just don't know the magic number. And we can only speculate and hypothesize that it's somewhere 3-ish and up MPS spikes a day that would perhaps optimize this process. And I want to put an emphasis on optimize, because you can still freaking grow on one meal a day. It's just not necessarily going to be a process that's maximized in terms of rate of gains over a period of weeks, months, years.